Hey guys, Crave here, and I have been enjoying my Rocat Vulcan board, but ever since helping my wife get her ducky for work, it got me realizing how enjoyable brown switches can be. Now, being able to have that additional feeling with each key press, I started to miss that. But I didn't want to just go with cherry browns, and I wanted to explore a bit, so I turned to the Aquas from HyperX. I think I saw on Reddit somewhere that HyperX had something in their line that was to my liking, at least from a Switch perspective. I looked around for their boards with Aquas and thankfully I was able to land one. So the Alloy Origins core was just a natural pick. It's reasonably priced and the design isn't so bad. Not just from the top side, admittingly I do like my Vulcan's design better. While it also has an aluminum frame and smooth design, I do feel the brushed finish from Rocat's offering catches my eye more. It also doesn't have a dedicated volume knob. Now HyperX resolves that through the use of the function key and pressing while simultaneous press with the F10 and F11 keys. In terms of the caps and lettering, it's pretty standard for ABS caps and it's nicely done in terms of the letters, although I do feel that those letters could be a tad bit smaller. Now being ABS, they do have that tendency to have the problems associated with that material. The shine effect and that mainly if you have oily fingers, that really just happens. But I do plan to do something about that pretty soon. Actually, I'm doing something about it as I make this voiceover. I'll probably release a video on that soon. Still on the top side, the HyperX logos can be seen on the spacebar and below the delete and end keys or right above your arrow keys for a TKL setup. Now, the name brand is pretty much like how Rocat does it, so it's pretty much positioned in the same spot. And I think it's the same for Razer's Huntsman Tourney Edition, but I can't recall exactly since I gave that board away already about 3 months ago. Now, also on that side, there are also some small light indicators when you go into game mode, or basically what that means is when you disable the Windows key and when you have your caps on. When you look at it from the sides, that's when you see the Aqua switches in their color. They're more evident when board lighting is turned off. They have this light green tint which doesn't really get in the way of your color choices for RGB setups. Now, the side that's facing away from you also shows the port where you plug in the USB-C cable, so that's a pretty tight fit which limits your cable options a bit if you were planning to reuse some older cables. Now, some people have pointed out on Reddit that the port placement being to the right is a bit odd, but to me it never really bothered me. The underside is pretty straightforward as well. There are rubber feet to help keep it stable in intense gaming sessions. Now, the feet do their job pretty well since the board's pretty weighty as I mentioned earlier. Now, it also has your feet or risers which allow for 3 levels of board height depending on the needs or your needs. So that already makes it much better than my Rocat Vulcan, since at least for that board there were only 2 levels that you could choose from. Now, for the switches themselves and what I feel is the key element of this board, they're definitely like browns, but they also feel like reds. Key presses on this board are very smooth. I would even think that if you're the sort of person who just hammers away when typing, you might even think that these are actually red switches. It's how smooth these Aquas can be. Very nice. Anyway, here's what they sound like when being compared to Ducky Browns and Rocat's Red Titan switches. The sound they produce are pretty close, with Rocat Vulcans being louder and the Hypers being the quietest. Now, HyperX and Ducky are pretty close in this regard, but I think that the Aquas produce a more muted effect, but it is a very small difference. Now, which one would be the better switch? I think right now the Aquas are better than the Browns, and with that I do hope that HyperX keeps making more boards with the same switches. Maybe they could come up with one that's 65% in terms of layout? Who knows? Just quickly on the software, it's weird but it sources it from the Windows Store, which I don't fully understand. Now in any case, the software is, I would say, it's just functional. What I do like about it though is that it allows you to save profiles in your board. you can store up to 3 profiles. If you're on a different machine, you can recall them via the function key plus the F1 to F3 keys. Anyway, that's my take on the HyperX Alloy Origins core with their own version of brown switches. Now these Aquas they really produce that tactile bump, but with so much more finesse. So I think I'll continue to stick with this board but change up the keycaps. Thanks for watching, guys. Talk to you soon.